So somebody could be, say, like a manager or VP or whatever, an executive. They could do an excellent job presenting to, say, the executive team something that is really important for their company. And then they get out of the meeting and just feel like this doubt of, how did I do? Or this feeling that even if it did go well, that somebody will think that I'm a fraud, that somebody will discover that it wasn't actually good. So it's really this almost like blind sabotage.
Pick it up. Pick it up. Pick it up.
Howdy, everyone. It's your host, Polly Siegel. And for anyone who doesn't know me, I'm a licensed clinical social worker, certified addiction specialist, and master-level trained mindfulness practitioner. I own a counseling practice in both Colorado and Illinois, and I specialize in trauma, OCD, and anxiety. If you live in either of those two states, feel free to reach out to me for a consultation, and we can begin the therapeutic journey together. Now on to the good shit. Welcome to season 3 of Shit Talkin' Shrinks. Gosh, I'm so excited. I will be featuring experts in the healing space, and we're discussing a variety of mental health topics, the human experience, and society at large, while creating levity along the way. Get ready to laugh, learn a lot, and change your life for good. Hello, everyone. We have another fabulous episode today talking about a issue that I think is so personal to so many different people. And I want to first, before we jump into it, introduce my fabulous guest, Sarah Khambatta. Did I say that right?
You said it perfectly.
Amazing. She's a leadership and life coach specializing in women, helping them overcome imposter syndrome. And so I think, honestly, as we're going through imposter syndrome, I don't necessarily want it just to be specific to our women listeners, but also our male listeners too, because I think everyone struggles with imposter syndrome. And it's not just one particular gender, but really all of us feel sometimes inferior or inadequate or less than. So yeah, tell us, if we could start off, what is imposter syndrome?
Yeah, absolutely. And everyone does experience this, and especially people who are in typically marginalized groups. But imposter syndrome, I would say it's characterized by the feeling of fraudulence or self-doubt. It's a feeling of fraudulence or self-doubt. And this is usually despite actual accomplishments and achievements and success. So the earmarks are usually people who are overachievers and already have accomplishments and success.
Interesting. Okay, so I love that. The part of this definition is really, it's this feeling, it's this internal experience that doesn't have anything to do with your accomplishments or success or your performance. In fact, it has nothing to do with accomplishment, but more just not feeling like you are authentically representing yourself.
Yes. So, and usually it's because there may have been some situation, there may be some internalized belief, like say if you are a man who's of Indian descent, I'm making stuff up here, but so say you're a man of Indian descent, you may have internalized that, people feel this way about Indian men. And so I should be maybe more polite, I should be more this or that, and maybe not so forward and not so proud or confident, because that may offend people.
Interesting. So really a lot of our internalized imposter syndrome might come from different cultural exposure that we've gone through or cultural nuances.
This is such a powerful moment, I think, because a lot of us are breaking out of those norms and those beliefs and those social customs. And so even with cultures that are thousands of years old and have been comporting themselves a certain way, we're all having a bigger discussion. And that's one of the reasons I love this topic. So it's not only for the individual, but it's to help society also grow and change around our story about women, our story about people, and our story about accepting ourselves.
Yeah, that's beautiful, Sarah. I think what's so interesting about the definition you provided is feeling fraudulent. Can you expand on that? Because that's a really powerful word.
Yeah, so it's sort of the Achilles heel of having accomplishments or having achievements. So somebody could be, say, like a manager or VP or whatever, an executive. They could do an excellent job presenting to, say, the executive team something that is really important for their company, and then they get out of the meeting and just feel like this doubt of, how did I do? Or this feeling that even if it did go well, that somebody will think that I'm a fraud, that somebody will discover that it wasn't actually good. So it's really this almost like blind sabotage. So this belief of like, I can't possibly show up and be powerful. It can't possibly have been this good. Even people who go to these, great schools and, have really all the accolades. There's just this feeling of being a fraud. Like it can't really be this good. I can't really be this smart. Even if people are saying, what an amazing presentation, what a great meeting. There were so many helpful points. Your data was so lined up, all of that. Just this feeling of fraudulence or doubt.
Yeah. And I think what's really fascinating is, and maybe it's just fascinating to me, but I have to wonder if whether our listeners find this pretty cool too, is I find that it's coming up a lot with very accomplished people that anyone would look at their track record or look at their history or look at their performance or success and be like, holy fucking shit, like you are a badass. So you would think like that person can't possibly feel imposter syndrome because look at what they do. They have so much status, they have so much expertise, so much skill. And I think, when you say that, I'm like going back through my mind of all of these conversations I have in my clinical practice. And I'm like, yeah, the people that feel like a fraud are the people that I'm very impressed by.
That's right. So that's why it's an earmark for me. If they're successful and they have a high level either at some of their achievements, and it doesn't necessarily mean in corporate America, they could be an actor. Michelle Obama has talked about having imposter syndrome. So many famous actors and so many famous people have talked about having imposter syndrome, and it's almost like taking care of the fear that other people will doubt us, and so we're going to do it first. And also, it's just, how can it be this good for me? How can I be this smart? That comes up. And it's always, for me, all of my clients, they are such high achievers. And it's just it just hasn't been reflected on yet also. And sometimes that's why coaching and probably therapy is so helpful too. It's a moment to reflect on it and say, like, let's go into this cave, or let's go into this and shine some light around what's been going on. Like, what's the story here? And then we hear those messages like, if I'm a woman and I walk into a room and I'm confident, I'll piss somebody off. If I'm a woman and I speak up and say my real thoughts here in this meeting or in this family, I will be seen as a bitch, a shrew, a hard ass, somebody who's not caring and loving. And so it doesn't fit into the social paradigm. And so therefore, I'm just going to make it easy and, silence up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think that really resonates. When I'm thinking back, I don't feel, when I think of my story and my journey, I don't think I struggle with imposter syndrome chronically. However, when I started this podcast, now in reflection, so this is like a light bulb moment that I'm having with you. I remember I landed an interview with Stan Tatkin. And if you're not familiar who he is, he's the founder of the PACT Institute, a very well-known modality that helps couples, and he's very impressive. And I remember getting the email from his team saying like, yeah, Stan would like to be on Shit Talking Shrinks. And I was like, what? He wants to like spend time with me? Like, I'm a nobody. Like, I had that conscious thought, like, I am a nobody to this man. And granted, have I been very successful in my life? Absolutely. And I hustle and I grind and I work really hard. And everything I've created is because of a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. And I know that inherently. But it was like, there's no, like, he's out of my league, man. And that was like a moment of imposter syndrome. And I like ruminated on it, like leading up to that interview of like, oh man, like, who am I? Who am I to take this man's time?
Yeah. And who are you not? Obviously right? It's so obviously there's been so much success that you've had, something drew him to you, but that's right. It's like the slippery black ice if you're from the East Coast or if you're from the cold area, it's like that. You don't see it coming. And then all of a sudden it's like that mysterious thought that says, oh yeah, who am I to deserve this great conversation or this great accolade? And so I think that's so true and so a lot of people, I would say it's not necessarily chronic in terms of just day-to-day living. It shows up as like having imposter syndrome, but every time we do something that's outside of the comfort zones, that's really visible or really different, or that we esteem as being measurable in some way that people could see and say, that's great. That's amazing that she did that interview. So to me, that's right on par. So I see it more like every time somebody's up to something big, there's an opportunity there for, pride. There's an opportunity for fears to come in, and that's a moment for imposter syndrome. But it's a great opportunity too to look at and say, like, what's that about?
Right. Right. So would you say, as I'm internalizing what you're saying, it sounds like imposter syndrome loves or really latches on to anything that's high risk or something that could be really powerful, great, bold, and incredible. Like that's where it breeds.
That's right. So it's big, good. So it's a great opportunity because there could be something that's really scary that's not good, and then that wouldn't be the case. But yeah, every time there's a great opportunity to shine, a great opportunity to prove ourselves to ourselves, our community, and society in terms of like to show up and have like scientific proof that I've arrived. That there is like actual, I'm in the Hollywood Reporter, whatever the thing is, that's something that's great, then that's an opportunity for it to show up. And so to me, right on the other side of that is the greatest opportunity to see what's the story or the shadow or the underside of that. What's the underbelly that has hoisted that to the surface? Because it's just, there's a story, there's a fear that's running it that almost like a bubble underwater brings it up to the surface.
Yeah, let's go there. So the underbelly, the shadow, like the dark side of it. When you think of your clients and the magical work you do, what do you feel are the common drivers or stories that illuminate imposter syndrome?
The sentence will be different for every person, or the thing that's revealed will be a little bit different for the person. I remember I was coaching someone who was incredibly beautiful. This woman, she was a global leader, and she was so incredibly beautiful, but she was doing everything to conceal that fact. So in ways that she was showing up, not making eye contact, or just kind of graying down her shine. And so I sort of said that. I said, are you aware of how exquisitely beautiful you are and how it looks like you're actually trying to hide that fact? And yeah, she didn't want to make anyone upset. She didn't want to make anybody mad. So that was an odd one, right? So it's a little bit different for every person, but I would say a lot of them might be like, I'm the only woman on the executive team. And I know I'm representing the entire, women. I'm representing women in the company. I'm representing, or that group or that classification. It could be the same for men. I'm representing men in this female group, and so there's pressure. There's pressure on themselves to show up as being fabulous for that other group. And so, just thinking through some of the folks, it's usually like, I didn't realize that I deserve this accolade. I didn't realize and that I deserve this. And it's just an awareness that I'm having right now. They'll say something like that. It's an awareness I'm having, like, oh, I don't need to I don't need to gray down. I don't need to hide. I don't need to conceal or make myself suffer, for doing a great job, or for getting this guy on this interview, or for, being, writing this book, or, showing up for this great team that I have.
So really, when I hear that, it's like shame, because when we inherently believe we're not deserving of something, or we're not worthy of something, or we didn't earn it, to me, that's fueled by shame.
Yeah, I would say that's accurate. And to my experience, because I know that sounds pretty therapeutic to some on, coaching versus therapy and so forth. And so I would say it is shame based, and sometimes it's just a lack of awareness around that this thing was there. It's astounding to me how little time people have to reflect, how little time people say, like, I'm going to put 5 minutes on my calendar before every meeting so I can just get conscious. So the old tools aren't running. So the old story isn't running, whatever the paradigm was in the family, or the last job, or the last startup, or the last stressful situation. I'm going to give myself 5 or 10 minutes before every single meeting, so that I can get conscious. So I would say that there is shame there, and it's different than maybe therapeutic in terms of, it doesn't seem like it's that long to solve it in this situation that they're in. So it's not like they need 10 years of therapy to look at their, the depth of it. Does that make sense?
Sort of. So you're saying that, like, it might not be chronic shame within themselves or embedded shame, but it might just be shame that's situationally popping up.
It could be situational, and it seems that through coaching that they're able to move it to the side, evaporate it, allow it to release from them so that they can show up and be seen and be heard and be who they need to be in their job. And it's little by little. It's not like a magic wand sort of experience, right? But so through the experience, there's little steps that they take so that they can actualize or prove to themselves that they no longer need to hang on to this shame belt, that they don't owe it to anybody. Whatever that last situation was, they don't owe it to that startup.
I want to take a quick pause to talk about our sponsor, a company called BetterHelp. It's an online therapy platform where all the therapists are licensed and accredited professionals. It's affordable. You pay a low flat fee for therapy with your therapist, and it's convenient. Do it at your own time and at your own pace, and you can communicate with your therapist as much as you want and whenever you feel is needed. And more importantly, it's effective. Thousands of people have benefited from therapy using BetterHelp, and we're really grateful to offer all of our listeners 10% off your first month. So if you're interested in receiving therapy ASAP, click the link in our show notes and you can get started. And you get to save money. What are other drivers, would you say? Like, when I think about that moment I had prior to my Stan Tatkin episode, which was fabulous, by the way. Like, oh, he's brilliant. I think it was also doubt that I was good enough. Do you find that that's a belief that comes up? Like, I'm not good enough.
Yes. I would say it's not the predominant one, but it's... So to me, the not good enough one, right, it's usually like can be met with some sort of preparation or some sort of conversation. It's not like as deep as the shame kind of conversation. It's not a story about who a person is. It's more like what I can do.
So it's about someone's capabilities.
Yes, it's about the capabilities. And if you reflected for 10 minutes, you'd probably be like, oh, right, I've done this and I've done this and I've done this. And I absolutely can do this. I just want to be a little bit more conscious, and whatever your tools are, and through talking that through, you'd find what your tools are and could be for getting set up so that you believe, so that the person believes that they are absolutely capable. Because it usually comes down to a couple of variables for people to feel that they are capable before going into a thing. And So that's like, I would say, the majority of people. There are some people who it is very challenging. And I would say a large part of this is speaking up. This is one that's come back again and again through time. Speaking up to the executive team, speaking up to people who are deemed more important. And so we take baby steps, because that's like walking in and then discovering that there's capability there. And through the actions, it becomes aware to the person. They become aware that they are absolutely capable.
And it almost sounds like part of the internal experience of imposter syndrome is this belief that they're going to be discovered as inadequate by others.
Yes, absolutely. There's a part of the shame that other people are going to actually like point and giggle or point it out, going to point it out that there's not capability or there's lack of deserving. There's some level of the fear that it's going to be pointed out in front of everyone, which is shame, the fear that that's going to happen. And if we had a situation, and we said, well, where has that happened? Like, for example, I mean, I've said this a couple of times on this call for some reason, so I might as well use it as an example, like the startup situation. A couple of these startups, they work such long hours and it's kind of brutal tactics that are used to get them to do stuff. And so there's some conversations around what happened before and the feeling of being isolated. I was number 6 in the company, and that has a whole bunch of weight on it. I was number 7, I was number 14, and, and it's like a badge of honor. And so everything that they've been doing has been to preserve that level of esteem. And so therefore, and also the length of hours and, so working like 18 hours a day or whatever it is, like over a period of 7 years or something like that, which I hear a lot. People working these like crazy long hours, the ability to have reflection time, to have consciousness, and to flip outside of like these old stories becomes very challenging. And so when going into a new situation, if they get busy or if they get challenged, they go right back to who they were being back then, which was, fight, flight, or freeze, basically. When you're working 18 hours a day and, not eating and taking meetings all day long, I think it's, a lot of people will go into fight or flight or freeze.
Do you feel like that maybe the driver to working 18-hour days, again, startups are their own beasts, but is it because there's this desire to want to prove yourself? Because if you prove yourself, then you can not have to experience imposter syndrome?
That's right. It's like a hamster wheel, being on the hamster wheel. I feel this fear, so therefore I'm going to run faster. But the running faster creates more fear.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So when we can have people start saying no to stuff, it's, it can be really challenging to say no. Like, oh, no, I don't work on weekends, or no, I can't work on weekends, or, I have to take my kid somewhere. It can be so life or death challenging to be able to speak up for oneself. But then that's where freedom comes in. The ability to have a voice and self-advocate is where, the freedom to deserve who we are and to deserve our accolades and to deserve to be alive and to be professional and, confident.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So having boundaries and saying no against things that are impugning on who we are, our freedom is. When we can say no to those things, we're saying yes to ourselves. And so therefore there's like that voice gives life to the person's purpose and passion and, life force in a way. Saying no to what needs to be said no to is saying yes to ourselves.
How do you begin to, because again, as I'm synthesizing all of this, it's imposter syndrome is a belief that you're going to get discovered as fraudulent, or you're going to be discovered as not good enough, or you're going to be discovered as not capable or not having the adequate skill set. How do you begin to challenge that, where you start to inherently believe that you are capable, that you are worthy, that you are deserving? Like, what's the process of even tackling that?
Yeah, but it's so true. Like, how the F do I do that? How the fuck do I do this? How am I going to get better? Because it seems like this wall of, something. And so, firstly, it's writing down and becoming conscious of what have you done in your life that's been, would you say, and maybe not phenomenal, because you say phenomenal and they say, oh, nothing I've done is phenomenal, because that's the imposter syndrome, right? What have you done that's been good, would you say? And then it's like, oh, well, I know I won the Nobel Peace Prize, I was a straight A student, whatever the things are. And there's usually these like huge things in the person's storyline where you're like, wow, it's so impressive. Are you hearing that? Would you write down what you just said? And it's like these 10 things where you're like, it's shocking. I just like have new respect for you. I didn't know these things, and so then they start having that reflection on these things and start hearing it. And it starts to have a context where they relate to themselves as other people. Like if somebody walked up to me and said, I won the Nobel Peace Prize and I was a straight A student, and I wrote 3 books, and I would have respect for that person. So having consciousness, it's surprising how little time we have for that. So starting to write them down, to own them and start speaking them out loud. So I'm big on Post-it notes, because people, like, you're right, you don't have time to refer to a document. So have a Post-it note, stick it on your computer. It's like name 3 things and have it be right up there so that, you can refer to it mentally every day. So first, it's like getting conscious to who a person actually is, and maybe becoming aware of who am I.
Right. And I would say, like, going back to my example, like, I didn't do that. I think I just kind of plowed through it and was just like, well, we're fucking scheduled, so show up and hope for the best. And again, in my humble opinion, it's a super amazing episode. However, I think if I would have slowed down and written in this very conscious, intentional state of like, well, I've experienced or I've accomplished blank, and I've done this and I've done that, and I've been able to celebrate, and here are my wins. Like, it's really acknowledging the wins that you've cultivated, that you've created along the way, because all of us have wins. And I think, it doesn't need to be the Nobel Peace Prize. Like, that's like, the 14ers.
Yes.
I don't know. I mean, maybe this is a helpful time. Like, I struggled with a very severe learning disability throughout my entire life, and I accomplished, a lot academically, considering that those limitations. And I was told at a very young age by the top psychologist and cognitive tester in Kansas City, like, you would be lucky if you graduated high school. Like, your scores are so low that you should jump for joy if you graduate. And I mean, I ended up getting my master's and I had a 4.0 GPA. Like, there's so much that I could really like lean into if I paused to think about it.
Yes. And so, yeah, the command, if as it were, if you graduate high school, you should jump for joy. I hope you jumped for joy.
Well, I'm competitive. I was like, fuck you, motherfucker. Like, we're going way past high school.
Other part of it. Yeah. So that can actually really work for you. It's like these stories that we have can really, really compel us to do great things. So, and it sounds like you have, and congratulations too for having, a learning disability and being able to do these things. I know there's many different kinds of learning disabilities, and yeah, so being able to acknowledge that and then also say that everywhere or anywhere you're comfortable, it gives new hope for other people. And at the same time, it's like I posted on Instagram, like, self-advocacy heals. And, so it's saying it on a podcast, saying the truth to, a coworker, a partner, or a boss, or anybody. Self-advocacy heals, because it's saying the truth rather than only what we think people want to hear.
Oh, that's beautiful. Okay, I'm thirsty for more. What are 2 more tools if we're trying to tackle imposter syndrome?
Yes. So to tell somebody else, I'm going to be working on speaking up in a meeting, I'm going to be working on being more authentic. I'm going to be working on exposing that I have, trouble with something. So something that I've struggled with, even though I was a trained actress, I have anxiety. And so that is something that I get to say and tell somebody. So I'm going to be working on whatever that new thing is. Say it's anxiety, and I'm going to be working on speaking on 10 podcasts coming up. And so will you celebrate me when you see me in the meeting, on the podcast, whatever the thing is? Can we have a whatever dance party? Can you celebrate me when you see me doing what I'm claiming I will do?
Oh, so it's like you reach out to your support system and you're like, hey, I'm going to be brave and courageous to do this, but I need you to celebrate me.
Yes. Will you? And then getting the agreement with the other person. So I'm not going to come back to you and ask you, I want you to celebrate, would you do that for me with me? And then, so at the end of a presentation in a meeting or whatever the thing is, that speaking on podcasts, on stage or being in a movie or those things that are just, they are crossing the edge moments. Will you celebrate me when you see me crossing my edge I've just announced to you? And so that's, firstly, it's like getting visibility around the fact that this is a challenge, but I'm doing it anyway. And that's what makes me a warrior person. That's what makes me be, a high achiever. And that's me claiming my next level. So that's one thing that, so to tell other people. And the other one is self-talk, which is at the heart of everything. So being able to say, I like to start every single day with an intention. My intention is to, and people will make these to-do lists that are 74 items long, and that's fine, and I would hope that in there or on the top, there's like a to-be list, so, at the beginning of yoga, everyone kind of knows this. At the beginning of yoga, the yoga teacher will say, what's your intention? My intention is to breathe. That's it. My intention is to breathe. Or to be here, to be fully on the mat. My intention is not to push myself too hard and pull out my shoulders or, so it's an intention for the day. My intention is to believe that I can do this. My intention is to be a stand for myself. My intention is to be my best friend throughout the whole day. And so whatever that intention is, and then in the evening, was I a stand for myself? Was I my best friend? Okay, so, and then we just sort of review the day, like, where was I my best friend? Well, and then, I was kind of rude to that guy at the Starbucks or, something like that, or I absolutely was my own best friend and I cheered myself on. And so when I was self-advocating, I cheered myself on. And, what does that feel like? That feels really freaking good. That feels really freaking good. Because the story's in here. So let's, start with here.
Yeah. And I think what's so interesting is I never thought to set intentions around imposter syndrome. Like, I think that maybe this is silly to say out loud, but like really in the morning or maybe the night before, I'm sort of a night before kind of person where I like to set the intention for the next day, is really being an ally to yourself and reminding yourself of your capabilities, of your skills, of the true ability to soar, because all of us have the ability to soar. I don't think there's one person on this planet that doesn't have that ability. So if you can set the intention to be like, I'm going to believe in that, or I'm going to try to lean into that, and well, how could that not start to dismantle imposter syndrome?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's, with imposter syndrome or any other challenge that's related to imposter syndrome. Yeah, it's setting the intention. I'm going to cross the edge. And the edge for me is whatever it is, having whatever the next thing is. I'm going to become a CEO of my own company. I am going to, write a book this summer. I'm going, whatever is the scary, exciting, when I have vision, do vision work with people, like the next level is great, but scary and exciting. We want it to be scary and exciting. So then we know it's real. It's real, because they're really invested in what's scary and exciting. And that's kind of the perfect, juice to compel us to get there.
Right. Okay, so let's recap for everyone, because God, there's been tangible tools that have been sprinkled through this entire episode, which I love. Okay, so first is writing out your successes, your wins, your accomplishments, like taking reflective or introspective time to look at your data points.
Absolutely. Looking at the data points. And so a lot of people are good at collecting data points for some sort of argument they're making in a job or in a something. So what are the data points to argue for your greatness? And just journaling them down, writing them down, having them everywhere in your wallet, on your phone, on your iPad, whatever.
Beautiful. And then second one.
Yes. So second recap would be, which one did we do? Keeping up their self-talk. So, at the top of the day, having an intention, and the bottom of the day, reflecting on that intention. So fighting for your greatness. And the other one is having a partner in crime, an ally that you can come back to and have cheer you on, because connection heals. Connection is so valuable. If you see me doing great, it reminds me to remember that I did great. And so having an ally helps to cross the edge. So those are, I guess, some of the tangibles that we were talking about today.
There's so many, but those are the nuggets. Well, Sarah, this is not only applicable to every single person, but I hope that it's been meaningful in the sense that, like, you're not alone. Because I think when it comes to imposter syndrome, we sometimes forget that is a common humanity experience. Right? That, like, all of us doubt our capabilities. All of us feel like a fraud at different moments. All of us wonder our authenticity or our skills. And so if you've liked this episode, I hope you will share it with other people, and really spread the word that you can heal from imposter syndrome. You can start to rewire your brain. You can start to change how you view yourself, others in the world. And yeah, I'm grateful that you joined me today. So thank you.
Thank you. It was fun. It was a lot of fun.
Awesome. All right. We'll catch you later.